Matt, really good to meet you. Nice to see your face, although I have many times. And thanks very much for doing the book. I really appreciate it. I hope it hasn't been too much of a labour for you.
No, it's been a real pleasure. I've loved it. I love reading it, and I've been loving inhabiting, the world of Penguin Hill.
It's wonderful. Do you know Penguin Hill? I mean, do you know that kind of? It's a fictional place, but I mean, do you know that kind of place? Because it seems very familiar to me. But I'm just interested in whether other people can see it.
Yeah, it's familiar to me. I mean, I grew up in Melbourne. My grandparents lived in Gippsland.
Yes.
So spent a lot of time in the country, going back and forth, very much like a lot of those small towns in Victoria. They're all characters I recognise, particularly growing up in the 80s, as I think we're vintage. So it's been kind of an interesting kind of exercise in time travel.
I want to ask you, because it's such a summer book, and to me it felt like summer all the way through it. And I mean, what was summer like for you in 1984 and times like that when you were growing up?
Well, I remember there was a lot more sunburn than what there is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Summer was salt, sand, and sunburn. It was just very typical Australian summer. A lot of heat. Melbourne was not a great place when it was hot.
Yeah.
Getting down to St Kilda Beach or to South Melbourne Beach. A lot of cricket. I think that's a strange thing as well. I don't really follow cricket anymore, but I certainly doing this certainly got me kind of Googling the underarm episode again. And
yes,
that kind of
a
lot of the Rich Benno commentary and the like.
Because there's something I really like about cricket. I mean, I obviously like the game, but I don't feel that like I need to follow every decision that gets made or every game that happens, because you sort of kind of feel connected to it from being younger, and like the sound of Richie Benno and just that feeling of it being hot. It almost feels like cricket without having any involvement in it at all. And Australians, to me, seem to take a bit of ownership over the game, even if they don't follow one single ball of it. It seems kind of important.
The very nature of Test cricket is that because it goes for 3-5 days and they play all day long, it's always in the background. So my grandma's house in Shepparton, the cricket would always be playing in the background. And my mum was from a Catholic family, 8 brothers and sisters, so there's lots of cousins and uncles and aunties around, and this was always just a constant presence. So the sound of bat on ball and the crowd was just kind of ubiquitous.
It's kind of all that. And look, some of the recent controversies that we've seen in the Australian team, with the sandpaper and everything, and other unmentionable things. The way that I've seen that really attach itself to people, like people really care about it, when you wouldn't take them particularly as cricket fans, but it's that way, because I think I even put a line in the book that's along the lines of this, which is that cricket was a way for Australia to show off to the world for a long time, a little bit like swimming, was our kind of way of, and I know that, you have travelled around the world a lot and seen plenty of it, and I think it was our kind of way of sticking our chest out and saying, look, we're pretty good at these kind of things.
Yeah, well, Australians have always used sport in that way. It's the one thing that we've dominated the world with. I remember when we won the America's Cup, because I was living in the States for a year, so that was 1983, a year before this one. What a momentous event it was. No one had ever heard of the America's Cup before that in Australia. But suddenly everyone was an expert on wing keels and sailing and, it was kind of bizarre. But I do remember really well, the West Indian team as well, and you've kind of conjured them up perfectly. And World Series cricket as well. My brother had a Gray Nichols bat. I'm not sure if he still has it, but he got a Gray Nichols bat signed by most of the West Indian the Australian and the world team. I think there was a world team at one point.
Late 70s. Yeah, in the late 70s, I think. Yeah.
So, I'm not sure if he still has that. I'm sure it'd be worth a small fortune, if not.
There'd be plenty of names on there that have passed away now. Sadly, when I was writing the book, I'd go to look up a couple of the West Indian players, and they had passed away. And you think, I know sometimes for me, I mean, as you mentioned, you and I are a similar vintage. You're a little bit younger than I am, but you don't think 1984 is actually that long ago, and no. Then you talk to somebody, I talk to my kids or something, and it's ancient history to them. It's the way that you and I used to see the 50s and the 40s. They now look at the early 80s. To us, it's sort of like there's still a relevance to it.
My kids think that way about the 90s. I mean, when I talk about Nirvana, it's like someone talking to me about Jimi Hendrix, or Led Zeppelin. It's kind of a mythical, deep past.
Yeah.
Arthurian legend, or something.
Yeah, I know exactly. No, I know where you're coming from. The other references I put in the book were a lot of smoking, a lot of cigarettes, because I think we sort of soon forget, like 1984, everyone, like 9 out of 10 people, probably 8 out of 10 people was smoking. We had the cigarette signs all around the ground, but it's a different world now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, going back to summer Christmases, I remember my grandfather would sit at the end of this long table with a packet of drum, rolling his cigarettes, and a long neck of VB, and it was all the kids around. It was just no one gave it a second thought.
I might be putting you on the spot here, but as you're reading the book, as you're reading Cooper Not Out, I mean, is there anything that sort of stands out to you, with the characters? Is there any characters you feel reasonably connected to?
What really hit me about this book was I wasn't expecting to be kind of drawn in as much as I was. You've done quite a remarkable job, I'm sure it is on purpose, but it just fits such a kind of archetypal classic kind of fairy tale narrative in a sense. You have the darkness before the dawn, and you have, this reluctant hero, and, you have all the kind of particular gatekeeper characters in there. It really works extremely well. It really has a symmetry to it. And by the end, I mean, yesterday I was coming up to the climax reading that, and the two people who were working on it with me, who were sitting in the other room recording, and they're both in their early 20s. No idea who Richie Benno is or any of the characters that we're talking about. I was doing Richie Benno. I'm like, does that sound like Richie Benno? And they're like, who's Richie Benno? It sounds like a TV commentator,
You might as well have said, does this sound like Winston Churchill? Let me just try this one. That's it.
But they are completely drawn into it. They're just like, what happens next? I'm not going to read ahead. Don't spoil it. So you've just done a kind of remarkable job in kind of, revealing the kind of form beneath and sculpting this story. So it works extremely well. I'm a big fan all of a sudden.
Oh, that's terrific. That means a great deal to me. I've listened to some clips, and it just sounds great. It just sounds terrific. Just the pace and the feel of it is just so bang on. It's difficult, when you're writing something, you've got a voice in your head that's sort of playing over and over again, and to listen to it and it come back to the same way that you were feeling it is a rare treat, I think. I don't know how many people would ever get to experience, but to hear that voice come back the way that you exactly as you had written it and as you had felt it is terrific. No. But I haven't heard Richie Benno yet. It's so fun when I'll be honest
with you, Justin. I'll be honest. It's not really Richie Benno. It's more 12th Man via Richie Benno. Remember the 12th Man comedy routine? Which is so has not aged well at all. But that was where I kind of took my cues from, because I think he nailed some particular kind of Bennoisms that I'm trying to bring to this piece.
Oh, Billy Birmingham was so good. I was tossing up there to whether to put Bill Laurie in there, and talking to you now, I wish I had done a Bill Laurie just so I could get it. Yes, got him. Sort of from you, just to put you on the spot with it. So, that's so good. Oh, I'm really looking forward to that. Have you done a lot of audio books before? I tried to search. I mean, have you done many audio books? Or
this is my first audio book.
It's such an important thing now. I think people love them.
Yeah, I love them. I know lots of people who pretty much exclusively read books via audio now. Exclusively listen to books. Yeah, I've never done one before. That's why I kind of jumped at the opportunity. I thought, well, I want to try this and see what it's like. I have to say, it's been incredibly challenging. Just maintaining that kind of focus. I mean, I don't know about you, but just my concentration in general has shot the last few years, I think, as
I hear you, brother. I hear you.
Just the digital world we live in and all the distractions. So it's been a challenge, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it, particularly the character stuff. I've loved kind of trying to figure out the various voices and tones and for each character. It's a real challenge, but hopefully I haven't ruined your book too much.
Oh, no, certainly not. Unless it all went to hell after the bits that I listened to, but I really think so.
I think everyone's kind of working very hard to keep me on track and, to make sure I say either instead of either, keep consistent.
There was because they asked me to supply some notes, early on, and they just said, "Oh, look, if there's any notes that you or pronunciations," and there is a character in there that Sir Walter Grant, or as in Victoria we say Grant, and elsewhere people say Grant, and that he hates the mispronunciation of his name. So, sort of explaining that into words was kind of difficult, but I'm sure it came out easily on your end.
Well, I've been sticking with Grant unless he wants people to say Grant.
Grant, yes. Oh no, but that's one of those great things about the audiobook. It just brings it to life, and I like the way that the audiobooks have come along, because they used to be kind of flat, and this isn't going back that many years. I think they're kind of flat, but now they're presented, they're acted out. Somebody like you is doing them, and they really just breathe that life into those characters so much. It's bloody brilliant. I mean, I listened to a couple of Stephen King ones, and they by good actors, and the difference it makes, and very quickly, as Stephen Fry is also terrific at it, very quickly you just lose yourself in that book, and it's like Dad reading you a story at night. It's so good. I just love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, it's what are you up to these days? You got a play coming up next year too, haven't you? I think.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting year. Some work kind of fell to the wayside because of COVID. Of course, I was down in 6 weeks waiting to do a play down there called Sunday, which was a new Australian play at the Melbourne Theatre Company about John and Sunday Reid and Sidney Nolan and the Heidi kind of commune, I think you call it, art gallery in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And we went into lockdown in Sydney, and so myself and Nikki Shields had to fly up to Howard Springs and quarantine there for 2 weeks to get into Victoria. And then 10 days after we got into Melbourne, they went into lockdown.
Yeah.
That was an experience. But I'm doing another play at the Sydney Theatre Company, Blythe Spirit, the old Noel Coward play.
Noel Coward.
So and start rehearsals in February.
He's a great writer, isn't he?
He's not bad. He's not bad.
No slouch.
Yeah, he's no slouch. Yeah.
He's good with characters.
That's at the Opera House in March, so that'll be a lot of fun. And
terrific.
Yeah, and writing, I write as well, so I've got a couple of film projects that are in various stages of development.
We need to lift that Australian content quota up, don't we? We need to get that lifted and get a few more things off the ground.
Yeah, that would be nice. We need a new wave.
Agree. Yeah, absolutely. Particularly now, it couldn't be a better time for it, to be honest. Well, mate, look, thanks very much. It's been so good chatting to you. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, you got a book coming out in January?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, I don't really get time to read books. I don't, you know." This is a close friend of mine. He said, "I don't really always get time to read books." I said, "Oh, I've just found out that Matt Day is going to be narrating it and doing an audio book." "Oh, bloody terrific. Fantastic. I'll do that then. That's great."
Oh, great.
So I think you've certainly got a fan there. So hopefully...
That's good. That's great.
Got one. That's all you need sometimes. All you need is that one to be able to do it. It's just wonderful. Again, I'm really honoured that you're doing it, and it's a thrill of a lifetime for me to listen back and hear your voice with those words. It means a great deal to me.
It's been a pleasure.